Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I want to share with you my top 3 from the most recent Soulbound reward leaks. We saw 12 new cards come out on August 3rd, and from those cards I felt that there were 3 standalones. Now, I felt strongly that many of these cards, in fact most of them, are excellent, but the 3 I'm going to share with you in this video, which is a clip from a recent live, are going to be the top 3 in my opinion. And I wonder if you agree, so I definitely want to see comments below. There's some amazing cards with some crazy new abilities and debilitations, so maybe I'm not going to find unanimity with you on which are the best, but I like these 3 the most, and I feel these are the ones I'm going to need to get. If that sounds interesting, stick around and stay tuned. Have an amazing day. God bless. Let's keep going. So, Warborn Chieftain. Again, with the Earth Splinter, you got 7 mana this time. 7 mana is a fine amount to play for what might be a main tank, and I think this could be a main tank. You got the 4 melee, which is not crazy anymore. You see some 7 manas, but with Force Field, maybe 4 is better. Let's keep going. 3 speed is not fast, but it's not slow. I used to think 3 speed was fast. Now I do consider it in the window of still slow. 8 hit points on the light side for what we might consider a main tank, but phase and shield, very significant. Now the phase in conjunction with the 3 speed might be inadequate, but again, we can bring blinds, we can bring more swiftnesses, we can bring slows, etc. You can apply, there might be scenarios where you could apply a flight. Bulldog's character, summoner, and then drop a flight on buddy, and now you got maybe a real evasive opportunity. And so there's ways that you can make this phase way more powerful. And so I actually really like a card like this where the mana cap is in a space where you're not going to break your team in a mana cap perspective, and yet you get a lot of resiliences that can be backed up, not just with speed, flight, dodge, which would potentially be possible in different contexts, blind. That's 4 ways that maybe you could make this even better. But also, the shield can be made even better if you add more hit points or armor. And so these abilities with this sort of stat range can really be augmented to be, greatly exaggerated in its impact and influence. So I like this card more than I like either of the first 2, not because Blackmar Jinx is bad, but because it's not going to be a main card. It's got to be like a support card. I like this card a lot, but so far Warborn Chieftain is more of like, you could play this maybe by itself, and that might be okay. So I like Warborn Chieftain significantly, with the stun too, by the way, which I didn't even mention. The demoralize I didn't mention. The dispel I didn't mention. So this is a very powerful card in my opinion. I like this one, and it's legendary. It's not crazy. Maybe it is a little crazy. We'll see, but it's a great card in my opinion. Thus far, the best I've looked at. Let's keep going. Khazi Conjurer. 2 mana. I haven't looked at any of these yet, by the way. So if I'm missing some piece that you feel jumps out at you, I'd love to see it in the comments. And even if I'm saying something you think strikes home that you hadn't thought about, please also let me know in the comments, because I guess I'm trying to get my head around these. I haven't prepared thoughts on these. I'm trying to get my head around them. So Khazi Conjurer, I love this. I love how the fire keeps coming back to the Phoenix. We have the Elemental Phoenix. We have that huge taunt monster, I forget his name, but he has the summoner. Yasik has a Elemental Phoenix as a pet. And then we have Khazi Conjurer, who apparently has the same deal. Although it looks like it's burning him a little. I wonder if that's intentional. He looks like he's wincing in pain. Like he can't really handle it. What's this a new ability about? Do we know that? I don't know. Oh, is that the hang on a second. Is that the, yes, it's the incendiary. Okay. So Khazi Conjurer has piercing with 6 damage and 5 speed for 2 mana. It's all kind of just sinking in this very moment. 6 damage for 2 mana and 5 speed, by the way, and 5 hit points. So incendiary means he's going to be on fire, I believe. We could read the notes again, but I think he's on fire at the start of the game. He's going to burn himself 2 damage at the end of each round, and then he has a 33% chance to damage the neighboring monsters. But I would say for 2 mana, especially depending on whether or not fire cuts to the core, because one of the questions is, does the incendiary hurt the hit points, or does it hit the armor? Because, you know, fire could damage your armor first. So from a lore perspective, that matters to me. I don't know what they'll do there. If it is directly to the hit points, that's worse than if it will hit your one armor first. But clearly, this amount of damage is very substantial for that mana. And you'll have to think through what you would do with that. And then, does shield counteract incendiary? Does immunity? Probably immunity does. So what if you put Khazi conjurer in the 6th spot to drop in this crazy archery 6 bomb, and then right beside it you put a shield monster in the 5th spot with or an immunity monster for that matter? I assume it cannot be set on fire by incendiary, and therefore there shouldn't be any chance that your incendiary passes on. Do you see what I mean? Because the 5th monster is the only neighboring monster, I think. The first shouldn't be neighboring. It's at the front of the line. And so I would think there's ways to play with those debilitations that will allow you to creatively avoid some of the debilitation itself. I think anyways. And this card looks great. I mean, the only question is, am I right about some of those thoughts on this, and how do we play around it? But it's an amazing card. I'm going to throw up the Arachne Weaver, and I'm just going to take a time to check in with the chat, see what you guys are saying. What the WTF, 2 mana is too low for that one, Leandro says. I think a lot of people were getting spicy in the Discord talking about some of these cards. Again, debilitation. And how does that work with shield? How does it work with immunity? How does it work with armor? How does it work? How often does it spread? Does it go to the heart or the armor? So I think it's too early to really say if it's too low or not. Clearly it's low. But if every team had like 1 or 2 of these debilitation cards, and if this is where the game is going, we're introducing debilitation cards, then I might argue that debilitations could really be, you know, if they start to become more and more common in the modern format, remember, it won't be in the wild. Well, yes, it will, but it'll be more felt in the modern because it's in that smaller pool of cards. I don't think we need to think about it that way. And I used to say this about board games. I play Monopoly, and everyone plays Monopoly different. Some people put money in the middle of the board, and if you land on go, you get extra money or something like that, or free parking, you get extra money, something like that. And those are house rules. So in my opinion, as long as everybody follows the same rules, there's no advantage or disadvantage. And if we know that certain cards are rolled out of Modern and into Wild, and that Modern has the 2 recent here, I can't talk right now, sweetie. No, not right now. Not right now, thank you very much. Sorry guys, just talking to my daughter who knows I'm busy but wants to come ask a question anyways. Okay, so yeah, I think it depends. And if cards are rolling out of the Modern, then that is just what the Modern is. And now it has this, and it didn't maybe used to. It has these overpowered damage dealers, whereas it didn't used to. And you would say, some might say, well, I have to have it, and it's unfair that for those who get it. Well, I mean, that's the exciting part about Soulbound Rewards. Don't you want to play it to get them? And then people will say, well, what if I don't get them, and yet I want them? Well, again, we know that some of them are going to be unlockable, and there's some kind of thoughts around how that might be possible. I know People's Guild was proposing that would be unlockable right away at a really significant cost. Cards like this might point to a real justification for that. I want to carry forward. Anx is what a beast. Eli says the meta for a smaller mana matches could see shakeup with Khazi. I agree. People's Guild, this guy's a low mana must have. Yep, he dies on his own in round 2 or 3. Unless you did a sustain of some nature. And again, we don't know if shield, you could apply a shield maybe, and that might change something. You could apply armor, that might change something. You could apply triage, that might change something. So yeah, it depends on the fullness of your play. Rodolfo with the equalizer rule set and triage monster, this could be insane. Absolutely. Maybe all will be nerfed. We'll see, says Nikolai. A couple more comments from the chat before we move on to Thanalorian Blade. Rift Summoner says Mimic is strong in the late game because you just keep stacking the abilities. Eventually it could become unkillable if it gets immune, void, shield, tank, heal. Yeah, you're right. Stock Chucky, yep. Let's carry on with Thanalorian Blade. What's your deal? 4 damage, 3 speed, 1 hit point, 6. So decently resilient. You got the opportunity, so you can bury it in the back lines. You got that double strike or whatever that's called, that execute, which is a cool name, by the way, execute. And this card does, again, very cool, consistent artwork. This card looks like it would have an execute. Like, she looks fierce. She's striking with this gigantic swing, but she has this like dagger or whatever here, so she's ready to follow up. Good planning, Nate and team. The card art fits the abilities you've given to it. In past, with some of the gladiators, we saw like he's holding a bow and yet he's got melee damage or something like that. So big level up. Well done. Good job, guys. So opportunity, you gotta like. 4 damage is very significant, and yet not gonna proc a force field. And 3 speed is, you know, slow but not too slow. The resiliency is there. It feels like it could fit in the 4th, 5th, 6th spot and you'd be okay. The trample is huge, especially with opportunity. And what's that one called again? That ability is the one where it supports the neighboring units, right? It like lets the neighboring unit take less damage. Rift Summoner Execute is only good with cards that have super high damage like 6+ or have Bloodlust. If the card has double strike, then it's good, but without those things, it's not a good ability compared to others. Because you're saying if the target has 2 or less health after successful attacks, perform another attack against the same unit. You're making it seem like that would make it proc a lot more often. Like if it had more damage, like 6 damage or more, it would have a greater likelihood of driving it to that low critical health level. But I don't necessarily agree. Like 4 damage can drive somebody to a critical health level. Now, if there's no armor standing in the way, because it doesn't have piercing, plus it's got trample, by the way, you could absolutely imagine this is an opportunity card, remember. It's going to strike your weakest monster, not your most strong monster. It's going to strike your weakest monster, and it might almost kill it, strike it again, that's a double strike, then kill it, trample this next monster who will be adjacent to that, presumably another backline vulnerable monster. This could be crazy. This could be really crazy. And for 6 mana, a strong opportunity monster is always good. 6 mana is not high for what essentially could, like, this is not a small little 2-3 mana, you know, melee monster. Sometimes we see 3 hit points or 4 hit points on something with this kind of kit. Not this kind of kit, because we've never seen execution. But with the fullness of what I'm seeing here, this feels pretty darn strong. Like this makes me think about gladiators. Now it doesn't have Bloodlust. I mean, in its, I want to play it. It looks like it'll change my battle. I really like how I'm imagining the consistency or the connection between opportunity, execute, and trample. And then, by the way, because of opportunity, sticking it in the 5th spot or the 6th spot, or probably the 5th spot, in conjunction with this ability, which the name escapes me. Remember, that's like a support capacity. So I like it a lot. I don't know which I like the most, or which one I would describe as being the must-have of this set, but you guys didn't seem to like the Thanalorian Blade the same way as I did. So in terms of drawing distinctions between what I'm feeling, maybe you guys think, and what I think, this card feels like one that I would consider a standout. Is it the best of the bunch? Probably not. Khazi Conjurer is kind of crazy, and you would probably use this in a conjunction, in a sort of build where you are trying to win in turn 1, or where, like somebody in the chat said, where Equalizer is in effect, so the Incendiary is not that much of a big deal. And in the context of a low mana match, you're getting a lot of damage for 2 mana. So cards like that, Arachne Weaver is high on my list because of the interesting new functionality of the corrupted healing. But I think Olivia the Brook with the Mimic and what that could be if you build your team correctly by the end of the match, Warborn Chieftain and how it's built to sort of last and sustain, and how you could quickly augment it with improving its evasiveness and in conjunction with phase, or improving its hit points and then benefiting from the shield. I like that card a lot.